We are live. Hello and welcome to yet another episode of PropTechBuzz, where we talk to PropTech industry leaders, CEOs, and founders from all over the world and learn from them insights on what it takes to build successful PropTech organizations. So, with us today, we have Cameron Paine. Cameron Paine is the VP Industry Relations and Head of Brokerage at Housecanary. He has been recognized by Inman News as one of the top 100 most influential people in real estate. He has served on the board of directors of the councils of MLSs and is the founder of the Broker Public Portal, now operating as a joint venture with HomeSnap, residential real estate's most successful broker MLS collaboration. Cameron is an industrial heavyweight who came up the way I came up to know about Cameron was through his very popular article that he published a few weeks ago, which had a penetrating peek into the future of real estate with his real estate trends. He identified 10 trends, and we thought that would be a good uh, topic for us to discuss. We don't have to go through all the trends. I will pass the link of the article for all the audience who have not yet got their hands into it. It's a nice article, and his influence and his hold on the industry comes through the article. So for this conversation today, I'll pick four of those trends which piqued my interest, and we'll go a little deeper and ask Cameron about it. But before that, let's welcome Cameron. Cameron, welcome to PropTech Buzz. How are you doing today?
Thank you very much. I'm doing great, Ravi. Thanks for the introduction. And also, thank you very much for the invitation to speak with you and spend a little time today.
Very, very excited about this. Cameron, before we get into the meteor stuff, why don't you tell a little bit about yourself? So I introduce yourself. You are in House Canary, but I also reckon you were not always into prop tech. What was the industry before? What is your career trajectory in briefly, maybe?
That is true. My career trajectory has been across three different careers now. So I'm on my third. My first career was sales and marketing in New York when I was fresh out of college and, didn't know very much about anything. I sold college textbooks with a company, St. Martin's Press, out of New York City. It's a great job, loved it, learned a lot. And I had always been a musician on the side, and I got an opportunity to be a musician full time with a company out of San Francisco. And so I did that, toured the world with them for a couple of years. And then, I was on the road a lot. So, and I was newly married. So I decided to try something else and picked up a director of marketing job in the real estate industry. And then that just kind of led by leaps and bounds to where I am now.
Nice. And did any of your past experiences contribute towards the success of your current in your current industry?
So you wouldn't think normally that, music would have any relation to real estate, but it definitely does. When I look at the real estate industry, I see all these fragmented pieces, both from a data level. You have, 540 MLSs in the United States. And while the idea of the MLS is unique to the US and Canada, and it's incredibly powerful, it's what drives our real estate industry here. The fact that they do have these fragmented data sets is expensive. So to tie that into music, it's a harmony. You can either play the same tune and be in sync with one another, be in harmony with one another, or you can just keep singing your own tune and not be in harmony with everyone else. And that's kind of currently where the industry is right now. That's a simplistic overview, but definitely, my past informs how I look at things in real estate today.
I didn't intend to ask this. I've never asked anybody about MLS. In Europe, we do not have a concept of MLS. Could you briefly, since this series, this podcast on PropTech is still fairly new, could you briefly explain what MLS is for people who are outside of US and Canada?
Sure. The multiple listing service, or MLS, is a collaboration of competitors. So every broker of a different company in the United States is a competitor with every other broker.
Right.
The problem for the consumer is when they go to buy a property without the MLS, when they go to a broker, they're only seeing what is for sale with that particular broker, not what's actually on the market um, in that geo area. So the MLS solved that problem by allowing competitors to cooperate together by having a central database of all those listings. And so, when a broker joins the MLS, they make a promise. They say, when I join the MLS, when I become a participant, I agree to put all my listings into the multiple listing service so that everyone else can see them, number one. And two is you offer automatically with every property an offer of compensation, which is to say, if anyone brings me a buyer on this property, I will give them X percent of whatever number they're using to set.
Nice.
So it's the cooperation and offer of compensation, which really, and the promise of that. So it's not like you can renege after the fact and be like, no, I don't feel like paying you.
Got it.
That's the condition of being a part of the MLS.
Got it. And I'm wondering why MLSs hasn't caught up in Europe yet, but that's a topic for some other time. I have some important questions to ask you.
Sure.
Could you tell us a bit about Housecanary? What is it into? How does it position itself amongst all the other prop tech companies? Maybe.
Absolutely. Housecanary is a 50 state plus DC brokerage. So essentially 51 states in the United States. And what we do is specialize in investors. So institutional investors who are looking to buy properties across multiple states, multiple regions, hundreds or even thousands of properties at a time. They need to invest money for a variety of different reasons. And so they need to understand whether or not the properties they're looking at are a good price, bad price, et cetera. So the valuation piece is very, very critical to them. So what Housecanary has built is a 50 state brokerage that can serve investor clients and help them search across all those MLSs I talked about, value the property using our proprietary automated valuation module, and then identify the property, the specific property they're going to buy. And then we give them the option to either, if they have someone in market that they prefer to use, great. If they need our help to identify someone to help them, we can do that too. Or if they need us to do it, we can also do that. So it's an automation of a lot of what happens. If you break the transaction into two, let's call it first mile and last mile. The first mile part of the transaction is where Housecanary does it better than anyone else. So the first mile would be search, value, identify the property you're going to buy. Basically, these are the steps you need to create procuring cause in the United States. We do a phenomenal job at that. Our AVM is known for being very, very accurate. And this is just, it's the lifeblood of our clients who are doing the investing. And then the last mile piece, we can do that. But really, we're built to cooperate with other brokers who are local in market, who have that local expertise. And we just co-broke with them to help our client get the transaction actually purchased.
So you're responsible till the transaction. It's not just to get the leads. It's not about just getting the right property for the investors. You are actually going the last mile till the transaction happens, and you
Exactly.
you make a cut of the transaction.
Exactly.
Got it. And it's primarily investors. It's not for retail real estate brokers. It's about institutional investors, the big ones, the big players, right?
Correct. Yeah. We're not built to really take people around to a dozen homes until they find the one they love. Investors have very different needs than a retail level buyer does. and they don't care about loving the home or or all the things that a typical person, or like I would when I'm looking to buy a home. Investors don't really care about that. They need to know whether or not that particular property is going to make them money. That's what it's about. And it's either going to make them money as a resale or make them money as a buy to rent, or some scenario, of a similar idea to either one of those.
Got it. Nice. And Housecanary also has a reputation of being one of the best AVM providers. What does it take? Because AVMs are again dime a dozen, right? Every player in the market has an AVM, and they market it differently. What do you think is the differentiator of a good AVM, or the best AVM in the market than the rest? What are the traits of a good AVM provider?
That's a great question. So an AVM can be really, really powerful, both for good and for bad. And Housecanary, to its credit, has from the very beginning identified that if an AVM is built on faulty assumptions, then it can arrive at faulty conclusions. What I mean by that is if bias is a part of the calculation in the AVM, then that will show up in whatever it renders. So the AVM that Housecanary has been specifically engineered to engineer out bias, to ensure that we do not include bias anywhere in the calculations. And then we've married that incredible, honest, mathematics with a very powerful artificial intelligence program. So we have one client, for instance, who they buy across 30 different markets nationally, and they have very specific ideas of what exactly they're looking for. And one of the things they require is that the house they're going to buy must have white cabinets in the kitchen.
Hmm.
They've just learned that in order to have a rental house, for their purposes, white cabinets in the kitchen wear better than anything else. So they
Right.
won't buy a house without white cabinets.
Mhm.
So the problem we're solving is we automate the ability to identify properties with white cabinets. So
Got it.
we use artificial intelligence to do that. So we're solving the problem at a really big scale. We're taking all the rough edges of having this client have to work across 30 markets, 30 different data sets, 30 different relationships with local brokers. They can do that all with us, with one relationship, a single data set, and a single AVM that helps them understand the value of what they're buying.
So for an AVM to be accurate, it has to have exhaustive, broad data sets, and also the coverage, right? So coverage of the market. So is this something that also is key for Housecanary to have as much property information into your database? Is that how it is? Like, do you scour the space to have as much to gather as much data as possible?
So we are participants in 162 MLSs nationally.
Mhm.
And from the participation in those MLSs, we are able to access listing data that accounts for 92.6% of all listings available for sale, single family home in the United States. If
Wow.
you just focus on the top 150 MSAs, or metropolitan statistical areas, we're actually up at 97.3% coverage of those.
And how's the relationship? Like, do you pay the MLSs for the data, or like is this a healthy win-win relationship, or do you get it for free? How does it work?
Well, so we're a broker. So with an MLS, and one of the rules of an MLS in the United States is that only a broker can become a participant in a multiple listing service.
I
So
see.
if we were just a prop tech company who was not a brokerage,
Hmm.
we could not get the data.
I see.
We could not have access to the data. So there are qualifications to being a brokerage. We have to show that we're actually conducting real estate activity, et cetera, which we're
Right.
doing. I explained before, but there is a fee to join each of those MLSs.
Right.
So it's not small when you add them all together. It's pretty significant. So there's definitely an investment that we've made to both join in the first place. They're often one-time fees up front, and then to continue that over the years.
So do you only get listing data, or do you also get transaction data of the actual transactions as well?
It depends often on the multiple listing service itself. So the MLSs have different qualities. Each one, they're all customized to some degree by their local owners.
Got it.
But typically, yes, we would be able to get transactional data, listing data, et cetera, in all the way down to very in-depth information that isn't often used by many clients, but can be of real service to our clients who are investors and have those very specific needs I talked about.
Got it. Yeah, I'm just tempted to ask so many questions, but I'm also being wary of the time. The meat of the conversation today was supposed to be the trends. So let's jump right into it, or maybe after a couple of months, I'll get you back again, because you have this ocean of knowledge.
Oh, I'd love
From
to. Yeah.
so you listed 10 trends, and I would like to jump on the four that caught my fancy. The first one was the metaverse mirror and the virtual real estate. And let me quote what you said in the article. You said, inevitably, buyers of metaverse real estate will seek professional help finding, valuing, and purchasing. There are already a few bleeding edge brokerages working this space, so consider this the call to action to create a new designation to educate experts in this virtual space. This just blew my mind because I never thought that there would be players who would be evaluating virtual properties as well, and why not actually? But can you shed some more light there?
Yeah, it's a funny one. That particular, I had a very large national broker get back to me about the article and say, I don't agree with that at all. So, yeah, it's possible I'm wrong, but my point is simply that it's happening actually now. So, I want to make one thing clear to your listeners. There's no one metaverse for these real estate properties. There are many.
Got it.
And one of the things that only time will tell is which ones become particularly popular. But you can Google any stories. I wish I had the link in front of me, but the one story that I recall is, someone paid something like $400,000 to buy the house in a metaverse next to Snoop Dogg. Like that's that's what he wanted to do. So this is $400,000 of US dollars, not, Bitcoin or anything else that could just devalue overnight potentially. So there's real money being spent on virtual real estate.
Right.
And it is mind blowing. I can't pretend that I completely understand why, but nonetheless, it is happening, and there are brokerages who are on the bleeding edge, who are trying to help clients be able to shop for listings across multiple metaverses and understand whether the value is better over here, better over here. It's not so dissimilar from what they're doing now for real estate as we know it, the live real estate.
Got it. Thank you. The second one was data hangover, and this also caught my attention because we talk about properties, we talk about the interiors of the properties, the condition of the properties. However, we never talk about the devices, internal appliances, the connected smart devices within the properties. And you said that consumers love tech in their homes and are rapidly becoming expected features of the properties, from smart doorbells to thermostats to entire HVAC systems. And we are not doing enough to capture this data and bring it to use. Do you want to shed some light on where do you see this playing when it comes to property data?
Absolutely. And first, I want to give a quick shout out to an organization here in the States that is working hard to bring standards to all sorts of real estate data, and potentially to this as well. They're called the Real Estate Standards Organization. And it's a not-for-profit organization just developed entirely to essentially bring order from the chaos that is all the data in real estate. So the best way to think about it, I think, is when you look at a property has a value attached to it. Some of that value is made up of what's actually in the property, specifically fixtures and things that would convey when the property is sold.
Right.
So my point is that when consumers add a Nest thermostat or a Ring doorbell or a smart HVAC system, these add value to the property. The multiple listing services, the ones who actually take in those listings to start with, don't yet have data fields that will accept being able to put in, hey, this is a Nest thermostat or this is a Ring doorbell. So that's step one, is we need to create the space for those data fields to actually be populated, identify what they are, and then have them be populated. And then related to that is who is actually tracking that data, who owns the data, and how will the data be used?
Right.
So, all those smart devices that we love to have in our homes are collecting mountains of data on us.
Right.
And it's potentially valuable data as well. So my point to the industry is, it makes sense to me that if it's happening within a real estate property, maybe it's real estate who should be the ones who should be focused on being the arbiter of that data, setting the fields, collecting the data, deciding on how the ownership works, and deciding on use cases. So that's kind of the overview of where I was coming from.
So what could be the use case? Are you talking about contribution of this data towards the valuation of the property, or are you looking at other use cases from this data?
I think both. So, the knowing what devices exist in the property would certainly help to establish value. So if you have a very high-end smart HVAC system that can be controlled remotely from a tablet, I would put a different value on that in terms of what the house is than a 1960s, oil burning HVAC system, right? So I think that would be one aspect of it, is, what value the devices themselves have. But then there's also, I think, value from the data that they're collecting.
Right.
And we may not I don't pretend to completely understand what exactly that value is going to be. But I think, if anything, the internet has shown us that even if we don't understand it now, data definitely does have value, and we should probably plan for how it's going to be used.
Got it. And the last two that I have is specialized services and evolution of property search. So with specialized services, you said, as a consumer, demand for real estate becomes more specialized to meet unique buyer requirements. Like a requirement could be, find me buy to rent opportunities in 30 states, find me a waterfront home with a deep water dock. So I can understand what you're trying to say, but maybe for the audience, could you explain your message here?
Yeah, absolutely. It's very simply, it's no different than if it's determined that you need heart surgery, you don't go to a general practitioner for the surgery. You find a heart surgeon. So if you're looking for something specific in real estate, my point is simply that there are real estate agents now who are starting to focus on very specific niche areas where they can help those clients. That's it.
Got it. And the last one also caught my fancy, which was evolution of property search. So I'll not read it. Maybe you could summarize it for our audience. Where is the search heading towards?
Sure. And this is a little more out there, but I'm just proposing that, we start almost every website, real estate search site that I can think of, starts with a box of limitations.
Right.
They say, hey, what's your limitation on price? What's your limitation on scale? Where do you want to live? Like that kind of stuff. That will get me a bunch of homes, but it may not get me any homes that are of interest to me. So it makes more sense to me that we ask good questions like, what's important to you? Is security important to you? Is being near fresh water important to you? You know, what is that? And then we can arrive at very different properties being delivered based on those. From my perspective, asking about price or even specific location might come last rather than first. So
Got it. Great. As I said, I'm just. It feels like I'm just getting warmed up. I wish I could have a longer conversation with Cameron, given his vast experience in this industry. But Cameron, you while I let you go, you have to promise that next time we'll have a longer conversation in one of the specific topics. Especially, I also wanted to know where is AVMs heading and what's the future of AVMs. I'm sure we'll not run out of topics to talk.
I promise.
So
I would love to come back, Robbie. Thank you.
excellent, great. With that, thank you so much, Cameron, and it was a pleasure talking to you. See you
You too.
around. Bye bye.
Take care.